Morning, everybody.
Morning.
So I guess before we even get started, please just a big round of applause for Anna and the team. All right, I love this setup. This is like this Thunderdome thing. Who's old enough to even recognize what Thunderdome refers to? Okay, just to get a sense of the audience, who's not from SAP here? Okay, a couple people here. Okay, within the crowd, designers in the room? Most people non-designers? Okay, 30, 40%. Non-designers, developers? Product managers? Other? What's other? Other? What is other in your case?
Other.
Good enough. All right, so I'm going to kick it off, and I know the theme of today is really kind of virtual augmented reality and kind of the next steps of experience, user experience, not limited to pixels and screens. But I'm gonna just kick it off a little bit, just in terms of because I have the opportunity with you all just to talk about design and the importance of design in our industry. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that we've been playing with, just really briefly on things like 3D immersive stuff, and where I see some potential on that. And then I'm going to make it interactive for a topic which isn't necessarily related to our topic of the day, but I think just a really important topic in our society today, especially here in technology and Silicon Valley. So I'll talk a little bit about that as well. But design thinking, everybody hears about design thinking. It's certainly in the news today. I mean, this is all within the last year. We've got Harvard Business Review, Wired Magazine, New York Times, McKinsey, Fast Company, John Maeda from Kleiner Perkins has talked about design. And of course, I always refer to this one because this is where it started all for SAP, this Business Week article from 2015. But the question is, from 2004, I'm sorry, 2004, 11 years ago. But the question is, why is it in the news? And why is it so popular today? Right? I would argue for those of us that are designers that this is probably the best time and the best place to be a designer today. Right? I mean, there's just so many opportunities in so many different areas, and it's not just in consumer software, but now enterprise software. This huge shift of importance for design and enterprise software, but it's just all over the place. And why is that? For those of you that have seen, Design Management Institute publishes this index of the world's leading design-centered organizations, and they have a whole methodology behind this. And there's a link here. They're about to publish their next index of design-centered companies. But the gist of what the slide basically says is that the design-centered organizations have really kind of outperformed the market over the last 10 years. I saw a similar report from Business Week that was published maybe 7 or 8 years ago. Similar findings, similar groups of people. The good news is, so please don't tweet about this because it's not public and it's not, it's not completely confirmed yet. But the lady that does this thing, actually met with SAP last week. And it's very likely that we will be part of this survey. So I think that's a huge, I think for those of you at SAP, give yourselves a round of applause. All right, and then, and this, how many people read the John Maeda's Design and Tech report? A couple people, not a lot of people. It's great. I think it's really like a must reading for folks, especially in our industry. It just came out a couple weeks ago. He had anybody at South by Southwest this year? Yeah, so he presented his report there, and again, for those of us at SAP was mentioned a lot of different times in that report. It was great that he recognized the history that what we've done in design over the last 10 or so years. But this was something that I found interesting from that report. Right, so the companies that aren't part of that design index and the companies that don't have inbound design talent or have kind of fostered it and grown it over the last couple of years. Or the last several years, have massively acquired, right? I mean, just look at this chart from 2013 to 2016. Over the last 3 years, all of these design firms have been snapped up by different companies, right? It's companies all over the board. So the things that you might expect, consumer software companies like Facebook and Oculus, Airbnb, to SAP direct competitors. We've got Infor and Salesforce.com there. We've got SAP partners or partner competitors. What's the term for that? Co-opetition or something like that? IBM and Accenture and Deloitte, Ernst & Young, Capgemini, I would argue. And then even two things that are really interesting for me. Lunar being acquired by McKinsey a couple years ago. What's a management consulting company doing with design? Why do they need designers? And then probably the most famous innovation consulting company, IDEO, was recently acquired. Minority stake, but nonetheless, it's interesting because they spent so much time trying to divest themselves from the Steelcase acquisition. They were independent for a little bit of time, and now they've been acquired. So what's going on here? And some of you have seen me talk about this before, but especially within our industry, right, within the IT industry, I think we're really at this inflection point because on one hand, you hear everybody talk about digital transformation, right? It's this buzzword du jour. Everybody talks about it. We talk about it all the time. But this is the reality, right? There is no doubt that technology is driving this digital transformation at all of our customers, at the world's largest organizations, across all the different types of industries. But this reality is also true. IT help is definitely wanted, but CIOs need not apply. Right? What does that mean? That means that even though technology is going to be so vital for organizations to be able to survive and pivot quickly and take advantage of all these new technical capabilities, the IT organization is not seen as the innovation partner with the business. Right? The business is looking elsewhere. The business is looking to third parties. The business is creating new titles, right? So again, in the customer conversations that we have, there's these titles of chief digital officer that's being invented, right? The chief technology officer is being asked to help lead some of these technical transformations. So that's important, especially for us in our industry, right? Because our primary road into most of these organizations is through the IT organization. So if the IT organization doesn't transform from being seen as the company that keeps lights on, which is this one, keeping the lights on, to the organization that's actually driving innovation, then they're going to be bypassed, right? They are going to be bypassed, and it's the best opportunity for IT to actually have a seat at the table and show their worth. But at the same time, at this critical junction point, they would be bypassed. And this is from Forrester, and this is from a couple years ago, and it shows exactly kind of what's happening in IT, right? It shows that IT, for the most part, is investing most of its resources in quote unquote keeping the lights on activities, and it leaves them just very little ability to actually focus on this innovation. Even though this innovation is going to take the organization to the next level, allow them to stay relevant in digital transformation, their investment and roadmap doesn't show that they're actually investing in the right places. And it's difficult, right? Because it is expensive, and this is why from an SAP perspective, this Run Simple campaign was huge, because how can we simplify all this stuff to make it more simple to run so that IT can be more relevant to the business and focus more on innovation? How can the chief information officer transform from the chief information officer to the chief innovation officer? I talk about this a lot, right? Innovation is the key, and the value that design brings is actually embedded in this equation, right? Because it's not the traditional execution and the problem solving which most organizations are good at, but design actually brings a balance to the creativity and execution equation, because creativity helps organizations take a step back, and design offers a methodology and a vocabulary and a way to scale this process to help organizations define this new problem that's worth solving in the first place, right? If you're talking about digital disruption, what's being disrupted? The boundary conditions are shifting, and the problems that you were solving before aren't so relevant anymore. And you need to be able to find the new problems that's worth solving for you to kind of do this pivot and not be disrupted by smaller, faster, nimbler composition in the design phase, in the design space. Yeah, I mean, this is how the D School talks about it. Don't jump directly to a solution. Take some time. Forget about the process. Forget about the names and the hexagons, how many there are. But just take some time to go through a human-centered process, a problem-finding process, to make sure you're identifying the right person that you're building the solution for, and you're also building the right solution in the first place. I talked about this before. Talent hits a target no one else can hit, but genius hits a target no one else can see. Right? To me, this is the essence of what the value that design brings. Again, to organizations in general now, but then most importantly, at least for our industry, for the IT organization to actually get this and be able to be at the table talking about this with the business because the business is going in this direction. Notice I haven't spoken about UX at all. Right, and that's also kind of a big, that's a big confusion. We talk about design thinking. It's actually the worst term for organizations, corporate organizations, because design has all this baggage, and then thinking is the opposite of doing. I always think that design thinking, while I understand kind of it comes from the mindset of designers and this process of human-centered, user-centered design, it's actually a terrible term when translated and it's brought to the business. But that's what we do, and this is the value that we're starting to see as we talk to customers, and it helps our UX organizations not only kind of talk about user experience and experience, but also bring the methodology for this broader umbrella kind of innovation topic. Okay, I'm going to skip over these slides, but sorry about that. So in our products, we've done this specifically in our products. So for those of you that aren't part of SAP, SAP doesn't look like what you probably imagine SAP to look like from before. SAP now looks like this. And there's a lot of people in the room that kind of are responsible for this. So thank you very much for our new redesigned user experience here. But I think the topic for today is really kind of moving from UI, user interface, and really kind of screens and pixels to experiences, right? And how many people have heard, with Siri and voice recognition, gestures and virtual reality, augmented reality, that user experience now is not as important, right? And there's less interfaces. It's more. I hear this all the time. Internet of Things. We're talking about headless types of solutions. People kind of heard that kind of conversation, right? I think hopefully today you'll see that the opposite is actually true, at least in my mind, right? Because every single interaction, as more and more technology creeps into our lives, and more of our life, our personal lives and our work lives start to merge together, you have interactions and experiences with technology. And I think it was Doug Engelbart, back in the 60s, he had this beautiful definition of what technology, the value of technology. And the value of technology truly is to augment human capabilities. Right? There is a human in the loop, and and every time we introduce more technology, at the end of the day, we're trying to augment our human capabilities. And every time there's an interface between technology and a human, there's an experience, and there's an experience that needs to be mindfully thought of and mindfully designed. And that's our role as designers, right? That's our responsibility as designers, and it becomes even more difficult. Because if you think about user interface and the screens and pixels, that started off with Xerox and Xerox PARC and the Alto and the Star, and kind of moved through Apple and the human interface guidelines, and that's a 30-year process now. We had Don Norman and Larry Tesler last night at the App House opening, which was awesome. These were some of the founders of kind of some of the HCI principles that we all deal with today. But that stuff has a history. Now we're getting into completely new territory. We're talking, just take a look at how many people use Siri? How many people use Cortana? What's the Android one? I don't know.
Okay with me.
Yeah, how many people use that? Right. How many people use Alexa? How many people have a car that also has voice input? How many people are frustrated that you have to use different syntax and vocabulary going into your car, into your house, into your phone? Right? The standards aren't there yet, right? And as we're rushing out to define kind of these new interaction modes, it's wide open right now. So it's not that just because you don't have a screen, we don't need design and user experience. The experience is even more important because there was an evolution where we started with things that were very physical and tangible, and there was analogies to the point, a couple years ago when Apple said, okay, enough, we've done this for 20, 30 years, now we can kind of move towards more digital native types of experiences. But that isn't true for, voice. How many people have tried to use gesture-based things? How many people have seen the Minority Report? Have people used an oblong system? So oblong was the commercialization of the Minority Report. It's a commercial product built by the people that did the design for Minority Report. Has anybody had the pleasure or pain of actually using a system? It's very painful. Like, we have a system in Building 1, and it's just so unnatural to try to kind of do the things which seem so seamless in the movie. So I think the change in human-machine interaction is totally shifting, but I think there's a huge amount of opportunity as well. But I think as you're going through all these examples, and for those of you that are kind of technology focused and people from outside of the design practice, just keep remembering that it's not just technology for technology's sake, but you got to get that interaction correct, or else you're not going to ultimately get the adoption that you want. This oblong system they talked about in Building 1, I think it costs $500,000 to install, and we use it as just a really expensive projector, to be honest. Right? There's a wand that you do all the gestures with. Nobody uses it for anything like that. So I was going to ask Amol if he's around, just to show. If you could. We're just going to quickly show. I'm going to show two things that we're just playing around with. So this 3D kind of immersive camera, they're amazing. I don't know. We had one of these cameras that we bought from Samsung. It's like the size of my fist, and it's a dual fisheye camera that kind of captures 360 video. And we were prototyping it for two different types of experiences. One, which was kind of the Sapphire experience. For those of you that aren't from SAP, Sapphire is this big sales and marketing event that we do every year in Orlando. This year, I think they said that we had 30,000 people there. So we had 30,000 people there, but only a small percentage of actual SAP employees are able to go to Sapphire. Right? So how many people from this room, for SAP employees, actually was able to make it to Sapphire? Right? It's a slip. 5% of the room, I would argue. So one of the things that we tried to do was we tried to kind of bring this technology to Sapphire, so that the employees here could actually have that immersive Sapphire experience. And if we were able to figure this out, I'll show a little bit of video of that. So we did a couple things. Like we did a walking show floor tour where Alex Bogdan, I don't know if she's in the room, but she interviewed me as we kind of walked through the show floor. And what's really cool is you can listen to me talk, but you don't really have to listen to me talk because you can actually see all the activities that are going on. If you can show the other video first. And just get a sense of like for me it's crazy how huge the SAP ecosystem is. And you only really get that when you attend Sapphire. And you see not only kind of all the SAP solutions that are all on the show floor, but the thousands and thousands of partners and everything that are all around us, and you really get a sense of that. So let me, if you just fast forward a bit. Maybe skip ahead a minute or two, and then just pan around a little bit. So this is Janaki giving a talk, but again, just skip forward a couple of minutes. Yeah, so now turn the camera around. All right, keep spinning it around. You get a sense of the whole show floor. We also we put one of these cameras in the second row of a keynote presentation, right? So it's really cool. Like how many people actually get to sit in the second row of the big SAP keynote, and you see Hasso sitting right in front of you next to Bill, and you see all the executives having whispering to each other during the presentation and all that stuff, right? So we also have one of those videos. But again, this is what it's something I just wanted to show. There's an opportunity to really kind of bring an experience in a much more immersive way and scale that experience, right? So I think that's the first one. Now, if we move to the second one, the second little prototype that we're starting to do is scaling design and scaling kind of education. We all know that there's a limited number of designers in our industry, and we need to really scale design as much as we can to the 300,000 customers that we have at SAP, right? I've talked in the past about, in consumer software, there's like a 1-to-10 ratio between designers and developers. At SAP, it's more like 1-to-100, but at our customers, it's like 1-to-1,000. Right, so just do the math, 50,000 large SAP customers, 300,000 customers overall. To go from 1-to-1,000 to 1-to-100 even is 500,000, 1 million designers that are necessary. So how do we scale this? So one of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to kind of use this 360 immersive video in terms of training material as well. Right, so you learn best by doing, but what's the next generation? The MOOCs today is really just an extension of what happens in the classroom. You've got somebody on stage, and then it's just really a talking head for most of the time. But with this kind of technology, you can actually bring people into the field, right? So we did a 4-minute just overview of design thinking by actually putting the camera in the context of a designer. Whether it was kind of interviewing and doing need finding kind of on-site, on location, here, what it actually feels like to kind of lead and be part of the brainstorming session and so on and so forth. So anyway, I think lots of cool and interesting kind of opportunities there. So I think that's it. And if you, we could send around links, and there may be 3 minutes, okay. And there may be some other. I think there's some examples of this that you'll see during the day as well. Can you switch me back to the slides? Last topic I wanted to talk about, which isn't really related to our topic of the day, but I think it's just important for me, and I just wanted to kind of ask the question: what does diversity mean to you? This is interactive, so it doesn't work if I ask the question. What does diversity mean to you?
Culture.
Culture? Yeah.
Mindset.
Mindset?
Everyone.
Everyone. Yeah. Experience? Okay. Authenticity? Okay. What is diversity in our practice mean to you?
Embracing differences.
Embracing differences, yeah.
Exploration.
Exploration, yeah. So because I'm running out of time, the problem with these definitions are these are the classic definitions that we think about in terms of learning design. But there was a guy named Jason Maiden who was the lead designer for Air Jordan brands at Nike, and he said something. He turned it around, and he said, "How can a practice that embraces diversity so much look so homogenous?" Right? He was at the D school and he said, "This is so cool, but you all look the same." And that's a topic that I think is really kind of important for me because also not just in the design but also in the tech industry in general. Right? There's a lot of questions on why kind of Silicon Valley is also so homogenous, right? And there's a lot of kind of initiatives kind of being run from the government to take a look at that and how do we kind of infuse more diversity in technology? How do we infuse more diversity in Silicon Valley? So I think it's really important. How do we have more diversity in actually our design practitioners? Right? I think Jason said he said I can name the 3 black design managers in all of Silicon Valley, right? Which is kind of a sad statement. So SAP, we've been doing a couple of things. We're doing, people aren't probably even familiar with this. We're doing a project with the historically black colleges and universities. And Ward was with me last week leading a workshop there. But there's amazing stories how just infusing tech skills into curriculum can really alter the earning potential of graduates coming out. Right? I heard some crazy stat like by infusing SAP skills into the HBCUs raises their starting salaries of graduates by $20,000, $30,000 just by having SAP skills coming out of that. And then recently, Brian Reeves and Danny Allen and Ward have been working on something called Project Propel, which is taking design and actually infusing design into this curriculum as well for the historically black colleges and universities. So like if you think about design thinking, it's such an exclusive, privileged topic, right? Stanford D School brings it. Stanford is the hardest university to get into from an undergraduate perspective. And once you get in there, you have to apply to get into a D School class, right? So it doesn't get more exclusive than that. So one of the things that we're doing, and hopefully to try to address this topic, is to bring the educations, democratize the information, bring a lot of these trainings, down so that there's a pipeline of people graduating that also has these skills. So again, not totally related to our topic at hand today, but maybe just something to leave you with and think about. And for those of you that do work at SAP, we want to do some more things with the community to try to address this in the local community as well. So I think that's it. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.